Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective, and today will be no different. Today we're going to talk about some game-changing fitness tips that are going to help you along your journey. What I've noticed with a lot of people is that I get a lot of questions and a lot of comments around how do I burn this fat off my body? And I'm going to tell you why that's the wrong approach in just a second, even though like we have an obesity epidemic where 75% of America is either overweight or obese. But I'll explain myself in just a second. But I think what's hugely important to understand around fitness is that I saw this two side-by-side pictures of each other. One of the pictures was taken on a beach in the 1950s, and the second one was taken on the beach in the 2000s. And in the first picture in the 1950s, there was virtually no one on the beach who was overweight or obese in the 1950s, okay? And you take a look at the picture today, and you look at the beach, and the vast majority of people on the beach are either overweight or obese. And the reason why I'm bringing that point up is a lot has changed in a very small amount of time. Now, for us as individuals, when we think about 50, 60 years ago, it seems like a very long time. But when you look at the grand scope of the human evolution, then it is literally a blip, 1 second, a millisecond on the human scale of time. And the reason why that's so important is because so much has changed in a small amount of time. And because so much has changed, and specifically around nutrition and the way we move on a daily basis, this is why we are not only in our fitness levels, but also in our health levels as well too. Again, I was also going back to the 1940s and 50s and looking at what kids were doing during physical education, PE, in high school and also like in elementary. And you look at what kids were doing then. They were doing 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups. And you compare today, physical education or PE is virtually non-existent in schools today. So our focus has completely shifted. And it's shifted away from not only what we've been doing for hundreds of thousands of years, but it shifted away from nature too. Because I always like to compare people by looking at nature. Nature is the perfect example of how we're intended to do things and how we've always done things, because nature really doesn't change when you look at animals in the wild. They're very different when they're domesticated. You look at the lifespan and the life of a dog or a cat in domestication versus how a dog or a cat lives when they're in the wild is very different. And so the perfect example is to look at nature in its rarest form, okay? And I always tell people, our body types, we can't do anything about our body types. We can't do anything about our genetics. But what we can do something about is our activity, our nutrition, how we live our lives on a daily basis. And so I always compare people, like people are always, when they come to me, they say, I want to look a certain way. And I always tell them, well, if you want to look a certain way, you have to do certain things, okay? It's not about doing things, it's about doing the right things. And so I always compare to people, if you look at a gorilla who is 800 pounds and lifts 10 times its weight, and all you see is these pecs and biceps and muscles bursting out of this animal. And this animal doesn't eat any kind of meat, or it's not on any kind of meal plan. And we're wondering, well, how does this happen? Okay, and we instantly think genetics, but that animal eats a certain way and it does a certain thing. The same way with a horse. A horse has certain activities too. A horse is a power sprinter and a power runner. Okay, so as a result, you see the muscles on a horse. Okay, you look at the cows that are in the wild in India. I lived a little bit of time in India, and you look at the cows here in the US, the cows are here in the US are plump, big. You can't see a muscle on them. You go to India and you're looking at cows like walking down the street, and these cows, you can see the muscles on them. Okay, so it's really about how you eat and the activities and the lifestyle that you live. So that's hugely important. The other thing that is hugely important as well too is to understand that the solution to our fat problem is, after nutrition, is muscle. Okay, and I'm gonna explain why we need to focus on muscle, building muscle, instead of focusing on burning fat. I'll talk about that as well too. And the other thing I want to, because I always have to address this when we're talking about fitness, is protein. It's like this subject that I can never get away from, and I always have to bring up and help people understand about protein. Now, protein is essential to life. We have over 20,000 genes that all make proteins, okay? Protein is needed for the skin, is needed for organs and tissues, the blood vessels, is needed for neurotransmitters. It is absolutely essential to life, okay? But what's really important to know and understand about protein, like I gave you the examples with a horse, with an ox, with a gorilla, 800-pound muscle-bound gorilla, none of those animals eat animal protein to build muscle. And here's the best example. The best example that I give people is this: is you look at some of the guys who go to prison. Okay, they go to prison, and while they're in prison, they don't have the option to say, I need to increase my protein or take certain, protein powders and, these pre-workouts. They don't have any of that, okay? But yet and still, you see they come out of jail and they're ripped, okay? Why is that, okay? I met someone who literally had been in prison for years, and they literally were living off of a ramen noodle diet, like the top ramen, and they built muscle in the prison. Okay, they don't have access to steroids, anabolic steroids, but they come out ripped. Okay, so what I tell people, again, I can give you many examples of this, but you can build muscle, okay, but you have to do the right thing to be able to do that. And going into that, there's two things that primarily build muscle: how you exercise, number one, and then what you eat. Okay. Now, the eat part is really important, because now we were talking about the quality of muscle. The example I gave you of the gentleman who was in prison eating top ramen, which is one of the most unhealthy things that you can eat. You can build muscle, and it could be unhealthy muscle. Okay, so we see bodybuilders who get all types of cancer and or die prematurely from heart disease and things of that nature all the time. Perfect physical specimens. Okay, so it's also about the quality of your muscle, because fitness does not equal health. Okay, so being fit does not equal health. That's hugely important. And the other thing that's very important is this: as we age, what we're noticing is that a condition known as sarcopenia, which is essentially age-related muscle loss and strength, we start to notice that this is happening earlier in life. We're seeing people who are developing, this sarcopenia, or this age-related muscle loss and strength. It used to be you would see this type of decline in their 70s and 80s, and now you're seeing the decline in people's 40s. Okay, so we're seeing it early in life, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier: the quality of your health. Okay, the quality of your muscle. Okay, because as you start to lose, what happens is, and this is really important, because what we start to notice is that it's also a sign of youthfulness too, the presence of muscle in the body. Okay, and so what we're starting to notice is people are looking older, younger. All right, and one of the primary reasons why is because what we're putting in our bodies. Okay, every day if you put man-made things in your body on a daily basis, well, you got to understand, we are what we eat. Okay, so you got to ask yourself, am I building this house or temple with cardboard and plastic, or am I building it with bricks and mortar? Okay, so cardboard and plastic is going to be processed in fast foods. Okay, it's going to be eating huge amounts of meat, dairy, things of that nature. Okay, if you're putting massive amounts of that into your body, then you're building yourself out of cardboard and plastic. And when that hurricane comes through, which is dis-ease in the body, then you're going to have to pay the price. Okay, the foundation of building with brick and mortar when it comes to this body, so that we can have a high quality of health along with our fitness, is always going to be fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. That's the most important part of the diet. Okay, that is the essential foundation of the diet. You can get any and everything you need through those fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. So it's hugely important to know and understand there's only two things that stimulate muscle growth: exercise and how we move, and what we eat. Okay, the other thing I want you to know and understand is that diets don't work. Okay, when it comes to weight loss, and even when it comes to building muscle. And the reason why I'm saying diets don't work is because it has to be a lifestyle to be sustainable. I meet people all the time who build muscle or build fitness or get or achieve whatever their physiological or physical goals are, but it's never sustainable. Okay, and most diets are not sustainable. And when I say sustainable, what I mean is people can do it for a year or two or a couple of months, but when it's not sustainable, mean you can't live this lifestyle for the rest of your life. And it not only help you, master your health and master your physicality. If it can't do that in a sustainable fashion, then it's a diet. And that's why diets never work, because a diet is something that you do for a period of time. Okay, whereas a lifestyle is how you live. It's not only just your diet, but it's how you live in every aspect of your health. Okay, so hugely important. What I want to get into now, I'm going to give you four. I'm going to give you four fitness tips that are going to change the game for you. And this first one I'm going to share with you is probably the one that was the major game changer for me, that I didn't realize this until I started traveling more and going to countries where we didn't have a lot of the modern conveniences that we have here in the States. And because we didn't have them, the conveniences, I missed the I guess I missed the conveniences that more. And what I mean by that is, for instance, when I would spend time in other countries, not every other country sees air conditioning as a necessity. And I'm not just talking about third world countries. I'm talking about first world nations like United Kingdom and other places as well too. Even in Italy, when I was in Italy and I would go there, and let's say I get an Airbnb, sometimes without looking, I wouldn't look to see if there's air conditioning. And then when I would get there and say, hey, there's no air, I don't see the thermostat for the air. And they would go, well, we don't have central air there, but we do have fans. And I would be like, what the hell? And that was the first tip for me, that in other countries, this is just a privilege. It's like in most countries, this is where like only the rich people have access to these conveniences. But the other thing it tipped me to was, especially when I moved back here to the States, was the fact that maybe this isn't a good thing. Okay. And what I mean by that was how humans have been existing, not only working and living outside for hundreds of thousands of years, exposed to the elements, sun exposure, etc. But we've also been in warm temperatures as well too. We get exposed to warm temperatures. And so it made me think, like, if we can make our house constantly 65 degrees, how's that healthy for us? Especially when the core temperature of our body is around 98. So what does that do to our health? Okay, so it made me explore that initially. And then when I started to look at some of the science, so there was a study that was conducted, and this is number one, okay, the number one hack that I'm giving you that's going to change the game for you. It definitely has changed the game for me. They did a study conducted on obese women. And in this study, They conducted it for 6 months. And they simply had women change the type of exercise that they were doing. There were 3 types of exercise. The first exercise would have been cycling, and then the option for the second group was walking, and then the third exercise was swimming, okay? Now, after 6 months, what they did was they evaluated fat loss, they evaluated weight loss, and they evaluated fat loss with a skin fold test, okay? And after the 6 months, you will be very surprised at the results. And what was so surprising about the results was, I've always been told that swimming was bar none one of the best exercises you can do, and it is aerobically. But what we've learned from the study is this: was that after 6 months, the cyclist lost around 19 pounds. So if you were doing the cycling as your form of exercise, you lost around 19 pounds. If you were doing walking, you lost around 17 pounds. Now check this out. Those that did the swimming laps, they lost absolutely no weight, okay? As a matter of fact, that group gained 5 pounds. Okay, now here's what's really interesting about the study. They also determined if a cyclist cycled more or the people in the walk group walked more, they lost more weight. But when it came to the actual swimming, what they noticed was if they swam more laps, it did not equal losing more weight. Now here's also what's really interesting about the study as well too. They did a skin fold test where they simply kind of do a skin fold to see how much fat is on the body. Well, in the cycling group and the walking group, they found that the people in the cycling and walking group lost 40 more percent. They were slimmer by 40 more percent. In the actual swimming group, they lost none of the body fat, or the skin fold test it didn't change at all. Okay, so just keep that in mind for just a second. Now, what is the difference? Because you got to think both of these are forms of exercise. All 3 of them are types of aerobic exercise. Okay, the main difference that they were able to kind of see in the group was that in the swimmers, the water is cold. Okay, whereas in the cycling group and the walking group, it created more heat in the body. Okay, and then what they did was they went back in the study and they allowed the swimmers to swim in waters that were much more warmer, and they noticed that they started to lose the weight. This is why this is such a phenomenal hack, because what you'll notice is that for the vast majority of us, we work out at the gym or we work out at home, okay? The vast majority of people. And what you'll notice is just like at your home, just like at the gym is always air conditioned. And when I tell you this was profound for me, because the thing that I always noticed at the gym, even during the summer, was that I would walk in the gym and feel cold, okay? Because of course I'm coming from outside, it's maybe 98 degrees that day. I'm walking into the gym and it's maybe 70 degrees, which is cold. And so I walk into the gym and I started noticing that during my workouts, not only were my muscles tight, but I mean, it just made me feel like I didn't really want to work out. And so I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things I changed and going through this. But one of the things that exposed me to the importance of working out in warm temperatures was this sort of thing that is sort of everybody is doing, called 75 Hard, which is a sort of a program that you do where you work out twice a day, and one of the workouts has to be outside. Okay. Now I didn't do the 75 Hard, but when I saw that one of the workouts had to be outside, it made me think, why does it have to be outside? And it makes perfect sense. Being outside, you're exposed to the sun, you're exposed to the element, you're getting fresh air, etc. Okay, so that's really important. And so I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. So in the last month or so, last 2 months actually, I've been working outside. And Just simply doing the same workout I would have done inside of the gym, I've been doing, you know, inside of my gym, in my gym that's actually outside at home. And what I've noticed is that in just not changing how I eat, not changing my routine, and just doing that, in the last month, I've lost 8 pounds. Okay. And not only did I lose 8 pounds, I've noticed the change in my skin. I've also noticed the change in like my breathing feels more wide open. I've noticed the change in my fluid movement as well too. And I noticed that I sweat more as well too. And that's one of the big things that I think is hugely important is that when you go into a gym that is air conditioned, most people don't get the sweat that they would necessarily get if they were working out outside, which is how humans have literally been living for the vast majority of their life, okay? Outside, exposed to the elements. So when I saw that was a game changer for myself, and then I saw the study, and then I thought about it, it makes so much more sense. Now, here's the other thing that I think is important. Now that I've given you the tip and the importance of working out outside or exposed to the elements, if you can't work out outside, you can only work out at a gym. I would highly recommend if you work out at a gym that has a sauna, then after your workout, you go sit in the sauna as well too for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Now make sure you hydrate before, during, and after. Okay. Hydrate before, during, and after if you're going to use the sauna as well too. And that also could kind of stimulate that heat effect on the body as well too. And in studies it's shown that individuals who work out and then have a post-workout sauna session, it is very beneficial, not only to fat loss, but actually beneficial to recovery as well too. So that is a major key when it comes to fitness, okay? Add the heat to your workout, to your lifestyle, and you'll notice a shift, not only in your fitness, but you're gonna notice a shift in your overall health, okay? Now, the other three things I'm gonna go through very quickly because I think that's the major key that I'm sharing with you guys today. Add heat to your workout, especially during the summer months. During the cold months, you can do what I was suggesting first. You could either turn the temperature up in your home, okay, to add some heat. You can either go to yoga and do some hot yoga, or you can go to the gym workout and then do a post sauna workout as well too. But when I tell you it is a game changer, it is a game changer. It will change your fitness to a whole nother level, okay? And even sometimes during my sauna sessions after my workout, I do a little bit of stretching as well too, because the body is, heated. The muscles are lean during that time. They're flexible. So I also do a little bit of stretching in there as well too, but you got to be careful. You don't want to pass out, okay? So be careful. If you haven't did it before, I want you to make sure that you ease yourself into it. Some light stretching, just kind of picking your foot up and grabbing your toes or something like that. All right. Number two, focus on building muscle. Don't focus on building fat. And the reason why is because your muscles are a fat burning furnace. Okay. All right. If you really want to burn fat, you need to build muscle because that's exactly what muscle is going to do. Okay. It's going to burn fat. All right. So you want to actually focus on building muscle. All right. And this is why when people first start out, the beginners, those who are who haven't been working out for a while, or, you're 1 to 2 years into working out, I highly recommend you start with calisthenics. Okay. Because calisthenics are your body weight. Okay. So you're not having to worry necessarily about doing too much weight where it damages your joints. Okay, so I highly recommend starting out with some calisthenics. You can do them outside. That's the perfect thing. You can do some jump rope. You can do some jumping jacks. You can do some burpees, things of that nature. But I think it'll be highly beneficial when you first start out your journey. Start out with the calisthenics. Okay, that'll get your muscles going, get you used to full range of motion with the jumping jacks. Got your shoulders moving, got your legs moving. You're keeping your core tight. Okay, so that's the benefit. Squats, lunges. I mean, I can go on and on, sit-ups, etc. Okay, so build muscle. Okay, And you could build muscle with calisthenics, pull-ups, push-ups, etc. All right, so build muscle. The other thing that's really important to understand about muscle is the muscle is the largest sort of, it uses the most amount of glucose in the body, okay? That's where the vast majority of our glucose will be stored, in muscle. And it's stored in there to be used, okay? So it's a huge reservoir for glucose, but it also uses a lot of it, okay? And so the more muscle you have, the benefits is that, guess what? You're going to be burning more of that glucose. Once you burn out your glucose, guess what it's gonna start burning then? Your fat. Okay, so the more muscle you have, the more glucose you're gonna burn quicker, which means that it'll burn off the fat. Okay, but you can't get to that if you don't have muscle to actually burn off the glucose. You'll always, if you don't have muscle to burn off the glucose, you'll always have too much glucose, which means you'll never get to the fat burning stage. Okay, hugely important. And I also think it's very important to consider muscle has been sort of, it's been extrapolated and compared to our longevity as well too. The more muscle you have, okay? And you'll notice that when people get elderly, they start to have falls and breaks. And this is attributed to what I was talking about before with the sarcopenia, when people are having age-related muscle loss and strength loss, okay? It's really not the issue with the bones. A lot of times it's just weakness in the muscle or not having enough muscle. And it's part of what we tell ourselves as we age. And so in my book, I have my book here, Vegetation Over Medication, because I know you guys are going to have, questions. I have an entire chapter dedicated to protein called The Protein Myth, where I break things down and help you understand protein differently, because I know there's always a huge conversation around building muscle. So if you have questions about what you should be eating or not eating, and whether or not you need this amount of protein, go to that chapter in my book, Vegetation Over Medication, and it will help you kind of get guided and understand that we recycle a large amount of our protein. I do believe it's somewhere around 70% of our protein is recycled in the body. This is why we don't need as much protein as most people think we do. That's why I call the chapter The Protein Myth. This is why men who are in prison can build muscle and get jacked without having, all of these protein powders and anabolic steroids and things of that nature. This is why, okay? And this is also why 800-pound gorilla who is nothing but muscle can build muscle as well too, is because we're recycling, 70% of our protein, okay? The third thing that is a major, fitness tip or hack for you is recovery. Recovery is so important. When it comes to building muscle is all about tearing down to build up, okay? When you're working out, whether it be without weights, with calisthenics, your body weight, or whether it be resistance with dumbbells or whatever kind of resistance weight that you're using, you have to have a recovery, okay? Now, recovery is two parts. Recovery is the rest that comes with recovery, but recovery is also how you recover in your lifestyle too, okay? So let me give you a few examples. The resting part makes sense. It's the sleep. Sleep is a huge, huge part of recovery. Not only from the standpoint of fitness, but recovery in terms of this is when the body heals, regenerates, and repairs, okay? One of the things we have to repair is that when we're lifting or doing calisthenics, we're tearing muscle to build muscle. That's how it works, okay? So we have to have repair to be able to build the muscle. You tear it down to build it up. That's how muscle works, okay? And the more stress you give, the more it has to respond to that. But what's so important for us to know and understand, we have to have that recovery. Sleep is a part of that. The other thing that's really important is staying hydrated, okay? Because when your muscles get dehydrated, it will lead to injury, okay? And if your muscles are injured, they can't be in a building phase. You can't be in I'm injured, in a state of emergency, but also trying to build, okay? So it's hard. It's hard for us to kind of look at those two, side by side and not understand, because I'm telling you on one point, building muscle is about tearing down to build up, but tearing down is an injury, okay? And a lot of things like CrossFit and other types of exercises aren't for everybody, which is why so many people get injured in them, okay? And so it's so important you understand what you're doing to yourself from that standpoint. Recovery is also the sauna. As I said before, the sauna will actually help you with recovery, especially infrared sauna, and also recovery exercises. Between going to the gym, doing calisthenics or resistance with weights, I'll do yoga sessions. So I'll go do hot yoga. Hot yoga is like me doing the sauna and yoga, which is stretching and movement to increase range of motion and flexibility. Okay, so between my workouts, some days I go do hot yoga, and that's part of my recovery routine as well too. And then most importantly, what I'm eating, okay? So if I'm eating my healthy carbs, and I'm specifically saying healthy carbs, green leafy vegetables, fruits, things of that nature, I eat those post-workout because my muscles are hungry during that time, okay? And so I'm gonna feed it initially those carbs during that time because my muscles are hungry, so it can consume those carbs very quickly, and then I'll go into my protein a little bit later. And so understanding that process is very helpful as well too. And then the number 4 that I'll share with you in terms of a fitness hack is this: make your gym your life, okay? And what I mean by that is I learned this when I lived in Japan and was traveling throughout Asia. I would see people all the time in the airports doing out exercises and calisthenics in the airport. I would see people on the train doing them, like stretching out. They literally made their life their gym, okay? And so I highly recommend you do that. Instead of saying, hey, let's go to lunch, say, let's go for a walk in the park. Instead of driving around 15 times to find a parking space that's close to wherever you're going, park farther away. Instead of taking the elevator or the escalator, take the stairs, okay? So that's what I mean by making your gym making your life your gym. And also spend more time outside, sitting on the porch, in the backyard, walking in place. These are things that are very healthy. You can't just think you got 24 hours in a day and you're going to spend maybe 1 hour at the gym, and then the rest of the day you're sedentary, sitting down for 8 hours. You can't think that that's going to work in your favor, okay? So that's why I say you literally have to make your life your gym. Even when I'm sitting here reading, doing work, I'll get up, do 15 squats. I'll do 50 push-ups. I'll take time in between, whatever I'm doing to add in some movement. Sometimes I won't read sitting down. I'll literally stand up. So I think those things are very important to incorporate as well. And the other thing when it comes to your fitness is cleanse and detoxify your body. Keep your body clean, okay? And again, one of the primary ways that you can do that is through your diet, okay? So having a supreme diet. Another way is sauna, and then another way, of course, is herbal detoxification. Of course, you guys know about my herbal detox. Because what you'll notice is that when you detox and cleanse your body, the energy starts to flow. It's like it breaks up all of those blockages in the body. And now the blood can flow in the body. And now the blood is the river of life. So it gives you life, which is more energy. So that's a huge part of your routine as well. Thanks for watching this video, but be sure to check the next video out that's right here. But everything I talk about is how do we take a holistic and natural approach to healing other than a man-made approach? And also, how do we prevent dis-ease in the body as well too? Because, they say